who got us to this point? Why do you think ancient societies without any modern technology spent decades painstakingly building giant monuments to their own historic...
Narcissism. Narcissism. Yeah.
Where it would stand for 110 years without causing any trouble. Far from it. In fact, the monument was revered and beloved. So much so that for decades, every U.S. president,
By racists.
Republican and Democrat, would send a wreath to be laid at the site. Even Barack Obama participated in that tradition. Now, before I tell you more about this memorial, including what it's called, let's fast forward to the current day. For 110 years, the memorial was honored by many Americans. To most, it was probably unknown. It sat there, harming no one, creating no problems of any kind.
Mustaches. I don't know why you still want statues of traitors all around. Come on, Matt. Unless you're a white supremacist who wants to revere the idea that you should be fighting in a civil war to upend slavery. Not sure. Like, I understand why they exist in the first place, by the way. It was one of the post-Civil War movements in order to try and unite the nation. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of hatred and distrust for the new United States government, the winners of the Civil War. And one effort that was put forward, especially for a lot of the South, was to, of course, allow them to have certain venerations of institutions that a lot of them were clearly already quite enamored with. And then, yes, there's been some time since then. We can move on. You know, we're ideally not still in that phase.
Until right now. Over a century after the monument's construction,
Trans people were hanging around for hundreds of years, not harming anyone too, Matt. You cool with them? Very true. Well, I would say actually just for thousands of years, as long as there's been human history, there's been homosexual people, trans people, different societies throughout human culture have given them different names or different titles, or even explored the idea of multiple genders, two spirits, and stuff like that. It's quite fascinating. The Fa'afafine, for example.
A century and a half after the Civil War was fought, it has been decided all of a sudden that the memorial must come down. In fact, it so urgently must come down that we're told it's worth desecrating the hundreds of graves surrounding it in order to get rid of the thing. Fox News reports, quote, despite efforts...
Oh, what? Now you care about desecrating graves? Weren't you shitting all over all the indigenous people who were coming forward to say that there was a residential school system in Canada, and then it resulted in the mass death of a lot of children, some of whom are in unmarked graves, sometimes behind schools? That's kind of a fucked up thing.
From a group of Republican lawmakers, a Confederate statue in the Arlington National Cemetery will be removed in the coming days. The Confederate statue is part of the push to remove military installations named after the Confederacy in the wake of the summer 2020 Black Lives Matter protests. According to a press release from the National Cemetery, the statue will be removed from the cemetery by December 22nd. The move to remove...
I hate that you have to say things like that. Like, well, in the wake of the protests, you know, some of us, we learned a little bit. We came to the conclusion that maybe, possibly, you know, the entire history of slavery in America was really bad. And then, you know, the justification for maintaining the Confederacy and then going to war for it, also not great. We've come a little bit of a ways. So we've learned some things, and we're agreeing that we should probably take down some of these monuments.
The statue is in compliance with the congressional mandate to remove all Confederate memorials by January 1st, 2024. The congressional mandate passed...
It's the first time I think he's advocating for losers getting participation trophies. These fucking woke PC right-wingers, eh? Everyone apparently gets a participation trophy. Oh, the Confederacy, more Confederacy. Oh, yeah, the Union Jack is not racist, all this
2020 declared that the Department of Defense must remove all names, symbols, displays, monuments, and paraphernalia that honor or commemorate the Confederate States of America by January 1st, 2024. An Arlington National Cemetery spokesperson confirmed to Fox News Digital that safety fencing has been installed around the Confederate Memorial as preparations begin to deconstruct the memorial, which was erected in I
just wanted to get to the erected part. All
statue, because it's not a statue meant to honor the Confederacy. In fact, it is called the Reconciliation Monument. It is literally a monument to reconciliation.
What were they reconciling, Matt? What were they trying to do? Who would have been a little bit sore about everything that just took place? Who probably wouldn't have been too happy about suddenly having to once again reunite with the North? Those bourgeois liberals, the North.
It was designed to symbolize national unity in the wake of the Civil War. And that's not my interpretation of it, okay? This is the express, explicit purpose of the monument. It was commissioned specifically for this reason, as a sign that the country had moved on from the conflict, a sign that we were all countrymen again, a sign of reconciliation, hence the name. So we must ask, if the monument symbolized reconciliation, then what does its destruction symbolize? Now, don't worry. You may feel disgusted and infuriated by this systematic campaign.
No, actually, I'm bored. It's like, I would actually rather you stop fucking trying to hide behind so many of these things right here. I prefer it when you're just out and proud with your white supremacist bullshit. Now it's just kind of like, oh, you may be misinterpreting history. Reconciliation, you know, coming together. And what happens if you destroy that?
Pain of desecration. They simply know better than you. And you should trust their judgment instead of your own. Watch.
The naming commission says the message the monument conveys is clear. Among the symbols, 2 figures of enslaved people and a Latin quote that translates to, "The victorious cause was pleasing to the gods, but the lost cause to Cato."
And in a way, it's saying that they were right, that the Confederates were right, and the United States is wrong.
In 2020, Congress authorized the commission to review Confederate assets on military.
Lance, you could almost say the contradictions are sharpening within capitalism, and these clowns are pushing for the ideological endgame, fascism. Yeah, once you see the economic collapse under liberal capitalism, you are seeing a lot more of the vilification of certain groups to explain all the problems in the world. Immigrants, trans people.
Military bases. Sigilly says people should trust the bipartisan nature of the commission.
So we have Republicans, Democrats, former military, defense intellectuals. We're a very diverse group in every way you would think that Americans are diverse. And yet we came together to do this mission.
There are plenty who oppose the recommendation, including Diane Brills, who was visiting from Florida.
All history should be recognized, and it should not be removed.
But Sigilly has a message for them.
They're still going to teach the Battle of Chancellorsville at West Point, and Lee is still going to win every year. But this is about commemoration, about our...
Matt really misses the days when he could own people. Like, I'm sure Matt Walsh probably fantasizes about being the descendant of plantation owners. Maybe he is. I mean, we don't really know much about the Matt Walsh family history, but I mean, it's probably more realistic that he was just like a latrine cleaner somewhere in Ireland. I don't entirely know what the history of the Matt Walshes will be.
Values.
Yes, you see a very diverse group. Establishment Republicans, establishment Democrats, former military, defense intellectuals. It is a varied mix of totally indistinguishable left-wing elitist bureaucrats. It's a diverse group that consists of swamp creatures, other types of swamp creatures, plus...
The military? Isn't that your jam? Don't you love the military?
Some other swamp creatures, and then to mix it up, additional swamp creatures. And this collection of soulless hobgoblins have simply decided that this beautiful, historically significant memorial is no longer consistent with our values.
Wait, sorry, the one featuring depicted slaves? I mean, yes, some things can be left to interpretation, but I really feel, especially if you're trying to talk about the true history of the reconciliation movement between the North and the South afterwards, they did have to do a lot of placating to, yes, some of the incredibly racist beliefs of the South at the time, in order to try and not continue animosity between the two warring factions post-war.
And by our, he means his. He has the moral values of a reptile, and commemorating all of those who died 150 years ago in the bloodiest war in our nation's history does not comport.
Sorry, what? Confederate soldiers? I don't know. How about fuck them? Like, I'll be honest. The traitors who wanted to own slaves. Fuck them all, honestly.
With his reptilian values, and so the memorial must come down. Is that it helps people stay connected to their history in a way that simply reading...
Oh my God, you're actually doing it. The fucking, here we are. We've come full circle. The whole like, well, no, we need statues of Hitler in order to know that Hitler was bad. That's why we should have effigies and revere him. Perhaps even castles, kingdoms, if you will. Hitler Town. Let's do it. Let's build all of this shit so that we can learn how bad he was. Because how else would we learn? There's no way to learn history unless you see an effigy. That it rhymes.
About it. Can't. These are physical reminders of where we came from and who got us to this point. Why do you think ancient societies without any modern technology spent decades painstakingly building giant monuments to their own historical...
Narcissism. Narcissism. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, not just one's narcissism left to itself. Like if a pharaoh was like, I need an entire pyramid and I need to be buried inside, along with all of my servants. Obviously, they're going to the afterlife with me. They truly are. That kind of sucks. But either way, I would say a combination of that. And then if you were revered as kind of like a godlike figure on earth, well then yes, more narcissism. It gets down to that whole thing. Yeah, there's a reason the popes want to live in such lavish fineries here on earth in the material world, which is odd because the kingdom of heaven, apparently no rich man can get into it. Doesn't really matter though at the end of the day. I think deep down a lot of people still, they want to have a good time here on the flat earth.
Heroes, because they realized that you need to stay connected to your past and be reminded of it and have a spirit of humility and gratitude in the face of it.
No. Like, I didn't directly participate in slavery, but I can admit that it was horrifying and bad. And yes, including the slavery that took place in here in Canada. Canada had slaves. Terrible, bad stuff. I can be like, that's fucking gross. Yeah. And the people who wanted to fight and die for the right to uphold slavery, fuck them. Honestly, fuck them. Not hard. Fuck them. Melt down, smelt down all of their monuments. We don't need to see them. They are fucking eyesores and reminders of a very horrifying element. It shouldn't be venerated. We shouldn't be celebrating those fucked up things that we did in the past. We should be critical of them so we don't repeat them.
It is that spirit that our elites want to extinguish. They want to create a society full of people who live in a historical vacuum, severed from their past, detached from their future, lingering in a kind of nihilistic limbo.
It's like, how can we basically give Matt a speech here about white supremacist rhetoric and not have him just straight up say like things like white power or anything like that? We don't want him to say that, because then people will be like, whoa, wait, isn't that what the Klansmen say? So in this case, it's like they're melting down parts of our history, and we need that history to remind ourselves where we came from and where we're going, where the future lies for all of us. We must return to plantation. Yes, and plant. New political ideology for the white supremacists.
Where neither history nor legacy matter. That's the goal. Now, this is where it gets a little confusing, though, because at the same time, somewhat paradoxically, the people who seek to sever us from our history also want us to remain stuck in it. Now, they don't want us to honor our history or commemorate it or memorialize it or learn from it, or least of all, understand it. But they do want us to retain historical resentment and guilt. Okay? That is the one part.
Not the second one. You don't have to feel guilty for things that people did in the past. People did tons of fucked up stuff, Stuff sometimes not even by intention. If you don't have an idea of the germ theory of disease, the whole like bubonic plague spreading and not understanding that it might actually come from mites on rats or something like that. Yeah, you're going to do a lot of wacky, fucked up shit, along the pathway, or torturing people because they don't believe in the right God, doing lots of that, inquiring as to whether or not they believe in the right God. And if they didn't give you the answer they wanted, just like, oh, well, to the racks with you. Yes, time for torture time. All really fucked up stuff. I don't need a statue though. Like when I walk down the street, I don't need to see a whole bunch of people torturing each other to be like, oh yeah, that wasn't great, right? That was a fucked up part of our history. You don't need to feel guilty about it. You personally do though, Matt. If you're trying to restore the ways of the past, like most fascists, I mean, self-proclaimed theocratic fascist that he is, but if he's trying to return to the good old days, yes, the way America used to be, properly white, where we were capable of owning and controlling those subordinate to the proper race. Like, yeah, well, when you say it like that, you probably won't be on the YouTubes too long, but if you word it like this, where it's like, they're erasing our history. They're taking it from you. You know who you are and what we need to do.
Part of our history that they wish to keep intact. That's how we've ended up in this bizarre situation where people today...
The carceral system is neo-plantation economics, says Skipping Bixie. True.
In the waning days of the year 2023, somehow act as though the wounds of the Civil War are fresher for them than they were for people who lived 100 years ago. Back then, people were ready to be reconciled. They had put the resentment to the side. They were capable of seeing the dignity and heroism of men who fought on both sides.
And everything worked out for black people and white people in America. That's what happened, right? And it's been great ever since. Yeah. Anything to say about Jim Crow laws or people not being allowed to use the same bathrooms, washrooms, go to the same schools, eat at the same restaurants, go to the same theaters, ride on the same buses, almost like an apartheid system, 2 different classes for people. Yeah, did any of that? How about redlining? How about the ability to accrue and build up wealth generationally, year after year? What about the carceral system, the penal system? Yeah, the police state. How did that work out? How has that been working out ever since? Has that accelerated even under Democrats? I know you love to hate on Democrats, but did that suddenly just start getting really, really bad after the passage of a whole bunch of crime bills, 3 strike laws, that kind of shit? Kind of seems like these problems are still there.
Or these were people who lost family members at Antietam and Gettysburg. These were people who...
Yeah, family members fighting for slavery. Again, like, I don't know what part of this is confusing. It's like, well, we have to have the statues so we can learn about our past. And it's like, the past was fucked. We can condemn the past, and we should learn about it. Let's learn lots. Why don't we teach this kind of stuff in schools? No, that's CRT. No, it's actually not. This is not CRT. This is just basic history. It's like, no, see, that's wrong, and you're trying to indoctrinate kids, and this is wokeism, and this is the woke agenda, and at the same time, it's teaching us that white people are racist, and babies are racist, and the white people are all racist. And so we can't have any of that. Let's shut that down. Let's ban books. I want to ban books. Yes. We'll start with things related to gender because that's kind of like an easy entry point. But then we should work our way to where do we think we're going to land next? How about African American studies? Yes. Let's start banning some of those books too. What's Ron DeSantis saying? Oh, that we should teach that apparently there were useful skills that were being taught to slaves. Not that slavery was good, but that it just wasn't all bad. So there were elements of slavery that one could look upon, such as the learning, again, of useful skills. Yes. Skills you were not paid for because you were under slavery, but skills nonetheless.
Who had actual, literal, physical wounds from the Civil War. And yet, they were somehow able to recognize the dignity and courage of the men who died on either side.
I wonder if those people who learn best from statues. Well, I mean, like, you have but to look to Marjorie Taylor Greene if you want to look about how much people learn about statues. She was one of the people famously was trying to defend the Hitler statues, being like, well, that's that, and we're going to learn about how he was bad by seeing the Hitler statues, and you're like, She then had to go to a Holocaust museum to learn the Holocaust was bad. I feel like you should have just learned the Holocaust was bad because it was horrifying. There's a reason why we usually teach it in most public education systems. How did you not learn the Holocaust was bad?
And they wanted to be unified as a country again. So, like, they were much more connected to the Civil War and yet a lot less upset about it in a certain way.
Yeah, you cucks.
So how is it that we, a century later, have apparently more resentment and more anger stemming from the event that the people who lived through the event didn't even have?
I'll be honest, this doesn't consume any part of my day. I do not often think about the plight of the Confederate soldier or how they're doing, or even my anger or animosity towards them, because they're dead. They don't exist anymore. I can look towards that period in human history and be like, that was fucking horrifying, wasn't it? But, like... And if someone's like, hey, by the way, there's a statue that has a depiction of slaves in it that's talking about, how this is like an hearkening to Venus and stuff like that. It's kind of yikes. Should we take it down? Yes, absolutely. Well, but then how will we learn about history? Oh, by teaching it. Teaching it. Let's teach it in schools. Let's teach about how horrifying the North Atlantic slave trade was. And hey, here's a little proposition for you. We add elements of how capitalism was intertwined with the whole thing and really fueled that mess. Why don't we get to doing that? Nope. No, because that's racist towards whites. No, it's not. It's really not. It's not. It's going to be something that might piss off white supremacists who are like, why are you saying that was bad? Because, yeah, white supremacy is bad. The whole idea that there's a superiority between the races and that one race should subjugate the other ones, all bad. All bad. The whole whiteness thing, too, made up. Nonsense. Yeah, again, I'm not trying to say there's no such thing as people with white-colored skin. I am one of them. I happen to have white-colored skin. But the idea of whiteness, made up, and that whiteness is superior to others, all garbage. Garbage. You know deep down it's garbage. I know all of you do, you know? You give it away. Sometimes Alex Jones will be like, oh, no, I'm not a racist. I'm really attracted to Mexican women. Really deeply attracted to Mexican women. That's why I'm not a racist. It's like, no, you're still a racist. You're just like hypersexualized in one group right now and trying to say that's why you're not racist. Because your penis tingled. Oh, yeah, you got a little blood rush to the penis. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, yeah, this is how I know I'm not a racist. Yeah, blah, blah. You know, every single racist, Tucker Carlson fucking spends half his show being like, immigrants, they're dirty and they're coming here. Oh my God. And then all of a sudden lunch hits and it's like, shawarma time. Oh yeah. Oh, can I get the 2-for-1 taco special? Yeah, no, I love all this shit. Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, this is my jam. I'm totally into this stuff. And then let's get back to talking about how all these filthy immigrants are bringing their inferior culture. Oh God, that was fucking good. Oh man, that was good. How do they, I don't even know. It's like some kind of fucking magic spell. The seasoning, the spices. Holy fuck. Sorry. They're coming here with their inferior cultures, coming to our lands to make it dirty and disgusting and pollute us and have sex with our women. Yes, that's right.
Our parents didn't fight in this war. Our grandparents didn't fight in it. Our grandparents' parents didn't fight in it. And yet it's our generation that is apparently still so upset that we can't stand to see Robert E. Lee's name on a bill.
No. The only people upset are you. Again, the white supremacists. You're the ones who are mad. You're like, my statues. No, don't take Robert E. Lee. He was the best among us.
And we can't stand to know that there are Confederate graves at Arlington. Our grandparents didn't feel that way, but we do. How does that make any sense?
All right, y'all, you want to see bravery? Are you ready for a nuclear take? I personally believe that there's one Confederate statue that should never be destroyed or taken down, and that we need it to teach us about our history. This one. I don't know what the current fate is of this, all right? The Bedford Forest statue in Nashville, Tennessee. I don't know what's happened to it, but I personally, in my heart of hearts, would be destroyed and upset if I learned that this had been smelted down. Because this shows you the clown shoes for what it truly is, all right? It encapsulates to me the ideology of white supremacy in what an absolute fucking bozo universe stupid idea it is. I want to see this shit, you know? I want to see more of these statues so people can just be like, lol, bozos, you lost, you're dead now, traitor. Like this is the way forward. This is the path. I have found common ground that we can work towards, everybody. If they want their Confederate statues, we just replicate this one over and over. We put it everywhere. We put it on fucking dangly, put it on trucker balls, all right? Trucker balls, and then just have this underneath the trucker balls. So it's like a 2-tier on trucks. Do that thing. We can even start some government program to fund it all. There you go, you know?
Again, with a vengeance.
Lance, don't try and learn. Well, I mean, I live in Canada. All right, I don't have Eisenhower and Kennedy statues everywhere, so how the fuck am I supposed to learn any of this? None of us can in Canada. Like this is how the public education system failed us. We need just like endless rows, like a Disneyland of monuments to every single thing that happened in human history, and then it's just like a pathway you walk down all the time that teaches you everything, all the way. Like we should go all the way back. All right, let's do some like early nomadic tribes. You know, some early man. We'll work our way upwards there. We're gonna go all the way through. You know, the pharaohs. Let's get all the way to like the Greek Empire, the Roman Empire. We could do the Ottoman Empire. That'll be amazing. That'll be a lot of monuments. Tons of monuments to be had in the Ottoman Empire. But I'm just saying, we just need all of history to be built into statues and figures and effigies. Just like fill the land. You know, just have it everywhere. Just so you're always being taught history. Otherwise, there's no way to learn.
Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Can you please hit the like and subscribe button and maybe leave a comment? It really does help the videos out. But first, the people who produce everything you see before you and make this entire channel possible: Amazing Fletch, Anna Loves Riley, Ariane McCarthy, Cheryl Alvarez, Doug Caddy, Everything Important, Hagbard Celine, Multimondi, Omni, Peanut Butter Blondie, Political Puppy, Quiet 185, Rachel K, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Ruby K, Cernicus, Spinach Monster, Stellar Vision, Sebastian DeMel, Trevbot.exe, Words Greenwood, and Travis McClinton. And also, thank you to every other person who helps fund this show. Their names are on the screen right now. It would not be possible without every single one of them. We cannot thank you enough. And if you want to join the Patreon, please come to patreon.com/theserfs and help us exist.